On this week's episode, we are talking through the most effective training split you will ever do, ladies. Bold, promising coming. But if you are one of my ladies who loves to train 3, 4, sometimes 5 times a week, you're doing classes, you're adding in cardio, you're still not seeing your body change, this episode is for you. It's also for you if you are yet to start, you don't know where to start, you know that you want to begin to exercise, you know it's a critical part of getting to where you want to be, but you don't really know where to start. It's very overwhelming. So by default, you just go for a run or you just go and get on the elliptical trainer at the gym. We're going to break it down today, ladies. I'm going to give you the exact 3-day split that I would use with every woman that I coach who wants to build shape, build lean muscle, tone up, whatever you want to call it. I was having a conversation this morning with a woman in the gym and she's looking really good and she's training because she's getting married in December. She said, my husband is freaking out in case I get bulky. And she's nearly 50, this woman. So the chances of building muscle to the extent where you're going to get bulky, particularly after the age of sort of like 30 plus, ladies, it's slim. So obviously I gave her some reassurance on that. But whether or not we consider, sometimes I'm a little bit hesitant to talk about building muscle, which is crazy, but you've got to consider language because we know what we want the outcome to be. I know the importance of building muscle for health and shape and even like for your fitness levels. Like, believe you me, we can run faster with strong glutes. But whether you call it muscle tone or you want to look toned or you want to look firm or whatever it is, this is the 3-day split that I would recommend. So before we get into that, I'm going to cut in with my unfiltered. How are we all doing? This is the second episode of this week. If you've not yet listened to Monday's episode, go back and have a little listen. The 3 data points that you should be tracking, really should be paying attention to, and the 3 data points that we really need to stop obsessing over. Good episode, lots of good feedback from that one. I think sometimes we just need clarity, don't we, around the results and the statistics that matter. But my unfiltered for this week is off the back of, first of all, an exciting nomination that I've had. 2 nominations, actually. The British Fitness Awards. The podcast has been nominated, ladies. I can't believe it. We've been long-listed. We've not been shortlisted yet. That is the goal. That's the next goal. I mean, the thought of getting nominated wasn't even on my radar, but now I'm like, okay, we need to get ourselves shortlisted. So I'm sure I'll be asking you all to help me out on that one and vote when the voting line's open. And then the other nomination is for Fitness Personality of the Year, which again, like I got the message and I was like, is this spam? And then I looked into it and I had a chat with the guy who organises the event and I was like, nope, this is real. And I'm just oblivious to the fact that anyone pays a blind bit of notice to anything that I'm doing, really. But anyway, here we are. So that's exciting. 2 nominations. The unfiltered for this week is off the back of Sunday's Stronger Together event. So an event that I hosted at. Some of you will have seen it on social media. I hosted the power panel and it was just such a good day. It was such a good day. But I'll tell you the unfiltered part of this and how it can relate to you all listening is that, first of all, when the event was announced, we brainstormed whether I would do a panel talk. Okay. And as it happened, I ended up hosting the panel. Now, for me, giving a talk is great. And, I can talk on anything related to health, fitness, wellness, training, aesthetics, hormones, like all day till the cows come home. But one of my goals in order to, help more women thrive, put your teeth back in, Nick. Help more of us thrive, bring more of us together just to be having these powerful conversations is to actually be the host of these conversations, bringing these women together. And I've been talking about it as a goal more and more recently, just in conversations, events that I've been to, obviously here on the podcast, on my social media, and that goal came to fruition on Sunday. Or, it's an ongoing goal, but it was one step closer to the direction that I want to go in. And it just really made me think afterwards, wow, the moment I have actually started vocalizing what I actually want clearly, not just no middle ground, no airy fairy, like just being very direct with what the goal is, where I want to get to. opportunities have started to open up. Things have started to fall into place. And I say this to all of my clients. So if you start working with me, I will always recommend that you, first of all, let your hubby know your goal, the boundaries that maybe you want to set around, I don't know, certain eating habits that you've got at home or the support that you might need. I want you to go into the office. I want you to talk about your goals. Like, it's something that you're proud of. And without shame, a lot of us, we don't want to talk about our fat loss goals. And I'll tell you why, because the thought that we don't drop the body fat when we've spoken about, oh yeah, but I'm on this new fitness regime, or I'm not eating in that way anymore, or I'm not drinking as much alcohol as I used to. The thought of us letting ourselves down stops us from talking about it, because we think, well, we don't want to be embarrassed in 6 months' time when nothing's changed. So I'm not going to mention it. What I'm going to do is, and hear me out on this one, ladies, because I know there will be a fair few women nodding along. I have also been there. We think, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it alongside everything else. I'm going to do it off the radar. And I'm just going to transform. And everyone's just going to notice one day. And we convince ourselves that going it alone is best case scenario. And it also saves us then the embarrassment of if we don't show up. Well, first of all, if you want to transform, you want to change your life, you want to get after something, you want to go for a goal, whether it's hosting, speaking on a stage, shifting all the body fat, training for the marathon, whatever it is, you've got to be all in. Stop giving yourself the chance to, half in, half out. Stop giving yourself that little buffer in case you fail. Because if you think that there's a chance that you're going to fail, what do you think the likelihood is going to be? So we've got to go all in with these things. And I always say this to my clients. And honestly, a lot of women do struggle with this because we fear again, don't we? We fear the judgment of others. We don't want to tell our friends that we don't want to drink as much alcohol. We don't want to put it out there in the office that we're not eating crap every day now at 3:00, because then the minute we do, we feel like other people are judging us. And it all always comes down to what we think other people are thinking. So first of all, we've got to not give two hoots about that. Harder said than done, very much harder said than done. But yeah, that was my unfiltered reflection on the week. The event went fantastically. I felt right at home as the host as well. Honestly, I was so in my element. The night before, I was texting a friend and I was like, I feel a bit nervous, weirdly. And it's so bizarre because if I'd have been on the panel, fire any question at me. Like, I don't need a heads up what you're going to ask me. Ask away and I'll be happy to answer. But when you are hosting, or even when you're talking on something that you're passionate about and you've got to be pre-planned, it brings on the nerves. Anyway, gets there, couldn't shut us up. In the end, we had a 45-minute slot. I looked down at my watch, I was like, oh, okay, we're just going over the 50 minutes here. And honestly, at that point, we could have easily carried on and doubled the time. We didn't. We wrapped it up. It was great. It was a great success. There's going to be another event announced. I don't know whether it'll be inside of this year and it'll be sort of like more towards the autumn winter. But it was a great event. I'll keep you all posted when the next one is going to be. And if you take anything from that little unfiltered, it is to talk about your goals, ladies, unashamedly, without any fear. Honestly, without any fear of what anybody else thinks. And especially in your own mind, that self-doubt that we have. But what if I can't do it? What if I don't do it and I embarrass myself? Like, we've got to have more belief than that. We've got to have belief that actually being bold enough to put it out there is part of the process and going for it. And you know what? If we do have setbacks along the way, that's also, it's character building. This is what helps us build the resilience. But we've got to be willing to put it out there. So if you've not yet done that, if you're listening to this on your walk, driving to work, pottering around the kitchen, whatever you're doing, and you know that deep down you're currently trying to do this alone, I would encourage you, in the next 24 hours, let's get it done. Next 24 hours, put it out there. Speak to someone, relate to someone, whether it's a friend who's also got a common goal or it's your partner. And it doesn't have to be a big sit-down serious talk. But, speak about the things that you want for yourself. We had the wellness walk a couple of weeks ago, Thriving Women. We've got another event coming up, by the way, a lifting event. I'll talk more about that. But on the wellness walk, we made a point of, let's talk about the things that lift us up, the things that we want to get after, the goals that we're setting for ourselves, the things that matter to us, because it's so easy by default to just get into the drone of the day-to-day. We're playing small in doing that. Anyway, without further ado, let's talk about the good stuff, ladies. How do we maximise this time that we are spending in the gym so that when the summer comes around, which is not far away, we feel good in ourselves? I want to stress the word feel. because the aesthetic outcome sometimes, and I'm going to say this, and you might never have heard this before, but if you are starting from scratch, it can take easily a year, a couple of different cycles of, trying to drop body fat and then getting in and going through a phase of building, and then we drop more body fat. Like, to build muscle on your body and to then be able to show up in a way where you've got the toned arms and the lean legs and the tight waist and you've got that definition. That is the one thing. It can't be bought in an injection. It can't be earned overnight. It definitely can't be done in a bloody 6-week shred or whatever it is. It just takes persistent, consistent hard work and dedication. And yeah, listen, I'm not saying that we can't see any results, on those initial 3 months, 6 months. But I also want to be very transparent here, is that I'm going to talk through the best way to maximize your training. But you've got to be willing to show up and do this week in and week out and get comfortable with, okay, this is a way of living for me now. And if I've trained in a certain way, whether it's being a cardio bunny or you've not done much at all, or, you've ate in a certain way for as long as you can remember, be willing to put in the effort that it's going to take to get out the other side of that. And it will go beyond the 6, 8, 12 weeks. There's a lot to be said for that initial phase, that initial 1 to 3 months, particularly if you're one of my clients, because that is the big turnaround. That's habits, behaviours, identity. That's where we get to the crux of, okay, who are you now? Where do you want to go to? Okay, this is the transformation. But then reaping the reward of the training and building those aesthetic goals and building your stamina and, achieving those performance goals, which some women don't even feel capable of setting initially. And then you get sort of like 3 to 6 months in and it's like, wow, I could actually sign up for an event here. Or, we start looking past simple fat loss and we're thinking about performance goals. That all comes with time and dedication. But we want to make sure that we are investing this time wisely. So first of all, let's get into, and this is my hot take on this, ladies, why most women maybe aren't seeing results. First of all, too much random training. Just going in and just doing a little bit of what we fancy. And I've definitely been there. I still have sessions when I do this now, I've got to be completely honest. But back in the day, just going in and doing a little bit of what you fancy was enough to just keep you feeling okay. But if we're at the point now where we want transformation and we want to continue to put our bodies in a state where we're burning fat for fuel, we're sustaining lean muscle or we're building lean muscle, then we've got to go into the gym with a plan or your home workout. We need structure, we have to. Also, you've got to consider probably the biggest factor that we all battle against is time. Dedicating, being able to set time aside for ourselves to work out. We want to make sure that we're making the most of it. So the last thing we want to do is get to the gym and not really know what we want to do. And then we spend the first 15 minutes faffing around or just waiting for the next machine to become free or whatever it might be. We need structure. This over-reliance on cardio for fat loss. I've had this conversation with a client this week because she said, Nick, I was walking on the treadmill because we've said if you get into the gym and you're struggling to get your steps, just add 10, 15 minutes on, either side of your workout. Just get some extra steps in whilst you're in the gym. None of my training sessions weight-wise go any more than 45 minutes long, by the way, ladies. You don't need to be lifting weights for more than that. I would rather you done an efficient load in 45 minutes than, spend 2 hours. Anyway, she said, I felt like I should be running there when I was on the treadmill. And she's very much from the background of Slimmers World, Weight Watchers. Everything's calories in versus calories out. So it's low-calorie food. It's cardio for training. And we're trying to undo that mentality. And there's a lot of women who have come from that mentality from our younger years. And actually, it did seem to work for a period in time. So that's why we've convinced ourselves that it's the best strategy. But we know once we get to a certain stage in life, ladies, it's so counterproductive. We just end up running on empty at all times. So had the conversation with this client, why do you feel like you should have been running? And she was like, well, to burn more calories. But this mentality of just constantly relying on cardio to burn more calories and drive fat loss is one of the reasons why most women aren't seeing results. Not enough progressive strength work. Now, I'm going to come on to that because this is spoken about a lot, but I really want to break down for you all what this actually looks like and what it actually means, building strength over time. Because we don't want to be trying to get a PB every time we go into the gym on every single exercise that we do. That's probably not going to be feasible. But, like I spoke about on the last episode another reason why we see women not getting the results that they feel that they are training for is because we are training to burn calories instead of going into the gym or lifting up your weights of a morning with the intention to build a body, build an aesthetic, build lean shoulders, build the glutes, quads, hamstrings, whatever it might be. So don't forget, we're always striving to give the body a reason to have to adapt. Whether it's through your nutrition, whether it's increasing your sleep, whether it's managing your stress, if you do something different, you will give the body reason to have to adapt. So when we're in training, we're just trying to cause adaptation. We're not trying to tire ourselves out. That's not the goal. Exhaustion is not the goal. Your body's not going to change just because you left the gym feeling absolutely flat out exhausted, dripping in sweat. That sometimes isn't enough to cause adaptation. Sometimes it is. It depends what you've done in that session. But that's not the key driver. We just want to make sure that we have given our body a reason to have to adapt. So what actually builds shape, ladies? So this shape that we're talking about, and again, we've had this conversation on here, I'm sure. We go to the beach. We're not looking at the men. I couldn't care less what the men look like, to be honest. I am looking normally at the other women. Aren't we so admiring of each other? Like, we're probably sitting there in our own bikinis or swimwear or cover-ups. And, we're quick to tear ourselves down, but we'll always look at other women and compliment. As I'm saying this out loud, I'm thinking, well, I am that other woman to another woman. So it's mad, isn't it, how it's all internal narrative, and it goes back to what I've just said at the beginning of the episode, like this fear of judgment constantly. Like, we're sat there with our cover-ups, or you might be sat there with your cover-up on, and you worry that anybody else is looking at you when you go to get in the pool, what you look like. And little do we know, the women around the pool who are sitting watching you are probably admiring the fact that you've got the confidence to get up and get in the pool whilst they sat there with their cover-ups on. So anyway, it's all this perception. But this shape that we admire in other women, it is shape. It's muscle and it's body fat in balance. Not too much of one, not too much of the other. Okay, so when we talk about, we want to look like we work out. That's normally the goal that I hear from women now. At this stage in life, we want to drop body fat, but the end goal, like what's the end goal? I just want to look like I work out. I want to look good. I want to be in shape. I want to be toned. Well, you can't create tone without muscle because it's muscle tone. So cardio alone is not going to create the shape. Cardio can improve our fitness levels and it can definitely support fat loss, but it's not going to create a shape. So we want to do strength training to build the shape. Your nutrition, your diet is going to reveal your shape. Ultimately, that's where we drive fat loss. And then your cardio. I mean, there's still a place for cardio, ladies, and I'll definitely touch on that in this episode. I love a bit of cardio because I just love that feeling of feeling fit and getting all the endorphins and all the good stuff. Your cardio really supports your heart, your lungs, your cardiovascular health. And it definitely helps to create a balance with calories. Okay, let's move into it. This is the 3-day split. I'm going to cut to this first and then we'll talk through like the nuances. This has got to be the non-negotiable structure. So I would say 3 times a week is the sweet spot that you want to be training. If you can do 4, happy days. If you're doing 5, your rest and recovery needs to be shit hot. Pardon that swear, but it does. 5 times a week when you're also managing stress and hormones and life and everything else, your rest and recovery has really got to be on point to get your results. So coached a lot of women, probably I'd say more so since the high rocks trend. I'll call it a trend. I love high rocks, but it's definitely, it's definitely a trend, isn't it, that's kicked in. But since high rocks has kind of come into the equation, speaking to a lot more women who train more excessively, and I think it's because of the buzz of this style of training, which we all love, but they are coming to me because they're really struggling to get results. Doing all of this training, Nick, but I'm just not getting the results, and I've actually gained weight or whatever the scenario might be, and it's because the rest and the recovery just doesn't support the intensity of the training. So 3 times a week, I'd say, is kind of like, if you're not doing anything right now, or maybe you're doing 2 and you're wondering why you're not getting results, you need to be doing at least 3, I would say. Let's give ourselves the chance here, ladies, to actually create change and support our health. Like, this is a lifestyle. So from now right up until goodness knows what age, in an ideal scenario, we want to be able to exercise 3 times a week. Like, wouldn't that be great to be a woman in our later years past retirement and we're still working out 3 times a week, fit, healthy, strong. And if you can stretch it to 4 times a week, happy days. So first of all, your first full body session, you want to do some sort of squat pattern, some sort of hinge, and then some sort of like push upper body, some sort of pull upper body, and then a bit of core to finish. So your squat pattern could be anything. It could be your goblet squat, it could be a front squat, it could be a barbell back squat. My clients will know this, but I'll break it down for anyone listening who's not a client, and especially if you're not following a structured training plan. Your first 2 exercises on the plan are what I would call like your money makers, your needle movers. So your first 2 exercises, they are the ones where we're using multiple joints, multiple muscle. We're probably going to burn the most and get the most out of these first 2 exercises. Okay, so that's always kind of like your squat, your deadlift, your press, your pull up. That's where we start strong, and then we taper off. We taper off the workout as we go. So we might move to some of the accessory exercises further down the plan. I'll give you an example of an accessory exercise would be like a tricep extension, a bicep curl, a leg extension, a hamstring curl, something like that. We would very unlikely start the session with anything like that. Sometimes we might start with a hamstring curl for activation, but anyway, very nuanced. That would only be for one-to-one clients if we were being very specific. But these accessory exercises, they're not the big money makers. Starting your session with a bicep curl or a leg extension is actually using that precious initial amount of energy on an isolated exercise. I would rather that you squat, where we're using calves, quads, hamstrings, glutes, core. We're using your erector spinae. We're probably engaging your shoulders depending on what variation of squat that you're doing. So you're getting so much out of this first initial exercise. So you want to start with a squat pattern, a hinge pattern. So your hinge is like, a deadlift, whether it's an RDL, a Romanian, like a sumo deadlift, but something where you've got a hinge at the hip. I was thinking kettlebell swing then, but I wouldn't normally program that as the second exercise. But anyway, and then you've got your push, pull, upper. So that would be, for example, very basic chest press and a seated row. And then you've got a bit of core. For us women, because we know that the majority of us, I am categorising, but the majority of us do want to build more definition in our lower half. We want to shift a bit of body fat from glutes around our legs. And so I would put more of an emphasis on lower body training in one session of the week. However, it's still going to be a full body session. The reason that I program full body sessions, ladies, is because it optimizes this recovery that we're striving for. So if we push you to your max on your legs on a Monday, are we going to be able to go in and train on a Tuesday? Or even a Wednesday, depending on how intensely you trained on the Monday, and go back to doing legs again? We need to factor in recovery. Now, if you're training 4 times a week, yes, you might have a lower, an upper, and 2 full bodies, but this is for the purpose of those who just want to maximise 3 good sessions a week. So again, session 2, we're going to put a little bit more emphasis on glutes, so we might add in a thrust, a hip thrust, a glute bridge. We might put in some single leg work, so it would be a split squat or a lunge or something similar. And again, some hamstring movement and maybe an optional finisher, because we still want to get that little bit of cardio in somewhere. And then your third session is going to look very similar, but it'll be the alternated exercises. So if we've done a front squat one day, we might do the goblet squat on the third day. And again, we're going to be looking at a push and a pull exercise, and we're going to be looking at some sort of hinge pattern and then the core. Now, that's a very sort of like top line breakdown, but let me get into how this all fits and how to make the most of this. And maybe if you're not following a structured training plan, how to put this together for yourself. So first of all, anything beyond kind of like, I would say 7 max exercises is probably not necessary. Okay, we want to get maybe 6 to 7, and that's including your core exercises in your program, depending on how many sets you're doing. So maybe we're doing 3 sets of each, and that's it. That is it, max. I work with a lot of women who we always feel as though we need to be doing more. We need to be adding something on. We're not sweaty enough when we leave the session. I want you to forget about that mentality, ladies. It's the same as we're trying to undo this diet mentality of everything's got to be 0% fat or everything's got to be low calorie, or, as long as it says it's 99 calories on the packet, then we can make it work, or whatever it might be. Like, we know realistically trying to shoehorn alcohol into our diet just because it fits our calories is counterproductive. It's the same with feeling as though every single workout has got to be sweaty, exhaustion, max calories burnt. Like, on paper, yes, but in reality, no. So it's your quality, the quality of your movements, the quality of those first 2 big exercises is better than overloading your session with 8, 10 plus exercises. Now, when we talk about progressive overload and building strength week on week, again, this is where I would be looking at building your strength and your progression, always in those first 2 exercises. And then if we've got it in us to push, we get to the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th exercise on the plan, and we've got it in us to get those extra few reps, to lift that weight a little bit heavier, to add in a pause, slow down the rep tempo to cause adaptation. That's great. But actually, to enhance performance overall, to enhance aesthetics, to enhance fat burn and muscle building, it's your big exercises where we want to be looking to progress. You squat, you press, you pull down, you pull up, you deadlift. Like, these are the big money maker exercises. When I talk money maker, I'm referring to anything that uses multiple joints. So let's think on a squat. You're bending at the hips, you're bending at the knees, you're bending at the ankle. So we're using 3 joints there. We're using multiple different muscle groups. These are your money makers. Any of those exercises, this is where we want to be looking to progress. And ladies, if you're picking up a barbell and you're putting a little, those little tiny plates that you can get in the gym, like the 1.25, even if you're just putting them on the end and you're adding 2.5 kilos to your deadlift, 1.25 each side, that is progression. So don't underestimate what progression needs to look like. It's not having 10 kg plates on either side of the barbell and then we instantly add 5s. It's not always that. It's slow, steady progress. Progress is progress, ladies. I don't care if you get 1 extra rep. I don't care if you add a 2 kg plate. It doesn't matter how big the progress is. It just matters that week on week, we're looking at the numbers and we're striving to improve somewhere. Now, nuance to this, if it's menstrual cycle week, then potentially you're actually going to be taking weight off the bar on those weeks. That's okay. We've got to be able to listen to our bodies when we're going through menstrual cycle. Some women feel at your strongest during menstrual cycle. Some women, this is where like strength drops off. And that's just due to testosterone production and where you are hormonally, biologically. If you're going through perimenopause at the moment, you will definitely see fluctuations in strength. And again, make sure that you're taking your creatine, ladies, because this massively supports performance in the gym and your ability to be able to lift. So we talk about the creatine and the fact that it might encourage a little bit of water retention. But trust me, the last thing you're going to be worrying about when you look shit hot is a bit of water retention. But the only way that we're going to get that shit hot body is if we can get in the gym and lift relatively good weights. Like, not the 3 kg dumbbells. We need to move past that. And we need to start thinking about really getting in the weight section and lifting up a decent amount of weight that challenges us. So I'll often get the question, well, how do you know if you're lifting heavy enough? And this, I feel like when I get this question, it's a good question. It's very relevant. It's a valid question, but think about it. How do I know if I'm lifting heavy enough? Well, only you know that. But we're so used to being told what to do, aren't we? This is such a big part of thriving women, I cannot tell you. I want to give you your power back so that you don't have to keep asking, what should I eat? What should I do here? Am I allowed to do this? Am I allowed to drink on this night out? Like, scrap all of that. We're only on this planet for a short time, ladies, and we want to be in the driver's seat of our decisions. Off on a tangent. This question always makes me think, we're so used to being told specifically what to do that we can't even lift a weight and acknowledge for ourselves whether or not we're lifting heavy enough. And sometimes it comes from, that little bit of fear of injury, or am I doing it right? And yeah, that's all the grey area. But very top line, you'll know if you're lifting heavy enough because it will feel challenging. If you've got 8 reps of a bent over row, let's say, for example, okay. Once you get to rep 6, rep 7 and 8 should feel challenging. If it doesn't, and you could keep going for 10, 11, 12 reps, just go and grab the heavier weight for the next set. If you get to the next set, let's say, for example, you're doing a bent over row with a 10 kilo weight, okay, and you're doing 6 reps, and it feels okay. You get to rep 7 and you're really having to control your core here, because you're really having to stop yourself from rotating and you're having to grip and you're really having to pull that weight up and you've got the last 2 reps, and I would always sort of maybe acknowledge as you're pulling a bit of a funny face, then yeah, that's probably a challenge enough weight where your body's having to make some sort of adaptation here. Let's say you then go and get the 12 kg dumbbell and that feels a little bit heavy and you're flagging after sort of like 3 reps on a set with this. So you're kind of like, okay, so how do I increase the weight here because I'm not quite ready for the 12? So there's a couple of ways that we can do it. Your first set with your 10 kg, we can either add a couple of reps. If it felt comfortable to get you to 8, but 9 and 10 felt uncomfortable, maybe we increase the reps for now while we're building a bit of muscular endurance. Or on your second set, I hope you're staying with me here, ladies, you might have to listen to this episode twice. You're going to lift up the 12, you're going to do the first 3 to 4 reps on the 12, and then you're going to drop the weight and finish the set on the 10. And if you can get kind of like 6 to 7 reps on the 12, and then you need to drop it, we can call that a set because we've progressed the weight. But next week, we're going to try and get those 8 reps. Does that make sense? Feel free to drop me a DM or ask any questions on this one because I really want you to not only take from this, but I want you to implement this, ladies. We're so good at taking in information. We're bloody ninjas at taking in information, aren't we? But we do not execute or implement it, and this is why we are still sometimes stuck in the same cycle. So I want you to take from this week. So if you've got any questions or anything doesn't make sense or I'm not explaining it well, please drop me a message and ask away. Ask me any questions. So that's what progressive overload looks like. Now, I want to acknowledge at this point, the biggest fear for a lot of women is, but what if I'm not doing it right? And what if the people around me are looking and making fun of me because I've never done that exercise before? Okay, first of all, potentially having some support, having accountability, having a coach's eye would be super helpful. So you may have seen on social media, I have all my clients send me a little video for form, technique, correction. Get yourself to our next lifting workshop, which is going to be the next Thriving Women event. But never let that insecurity hold you back. This is your transformation we are talking about here. You can't let what anybody else in that gym thinks get in the way of you and your transformation. So if you're unsure on something, ask. If you're unsure on exercises or you know that you need structure or you're struggling because you still don't have a plan or you've been trying to do it on your own for as long as you can remember and that's just not working because, holding ourselves accountable is often very short-lived, ladies, then come and join us inside of Thriving Women. Like, honestly, don't let any of these blockers be the reason that you don't get your results. But certainly the fear of judgment of anybody else. It's like that scenario around the pool. We're all thinking that everybody else is looking at us, but really the majority of the people in there are also thinking the same thing. When I used to work on the gym floor, so I was in a city centre gym, really busy, such a mix of everyone because it was city centre. We had sort of like the boardroom men and women had come in and, maybe of a certain age, and then we'd have like the young kids who'd be at university and they'd be in, and it'd just be such a mix. And the one thing I noticed across the board is if I got into conversation with anyone, they were always so complimentary of everyone else in the gym and normally pretty self-depreciating about themselves. And the majority of people were so concerned in their own self that they were paying very little attention to whether anybody else's form, technique or otherwise was correct. Like, no one's paying attention. Honestly, it was so apparent to me in the gym. When I worked on the gym floor, I really missed those days. If you were a client of mine back in JD Gym in Liverpool, shout out, how good were those days? Do you know what? I've got to say, like, the results that we get online are life-changing, transformational, but from a selfish perspective, I did used to like that. Just being able to get in a room with my clients. Hence the Thriving Women Lifting Workshop, which I'll talk more about maybe on next Monday's episode. But okay, so let's move on to cardio. Now, I want to make clear here, you can absolutely still do cardio, but it needs to support the goal and not be the goal in its entirety. So 2 to 3 cardio sessions a week, whether or not we build it onto the end of a workout or we put it in somewhere else, dependent on time, fitness, whether you're going to be able to pay attention to recovery is absolutely fine. This is not to go against what I've just spoken about, whereby I said leave the gym when you've done your 6-7 exercises and don't feel the need to put something else on. Dependent on what your goal is, whether it's fat loss, fitness. I've got clients who are, trying to build to a 5 or 10K alongside just, being novice at weight training, or opposite end of the spectrum, I've got clients who don't want to lose muscle, want to sustain the athletic physique, but then we're also training for a half marathon or whatever else it might be. Like, cardio has got its place. We just need to understand where to fit it in. But your steps is what I would say I want you to pay attention to as your like cardio in inverted commas. So if you're not getting 10,000 steps a day, 7 to 10,000 steps a day, start there. Don't worry about going for a run or doing any of this other stuff. Like, just trust me, if you're not getting 7 to 10,000 steps, that is your baseline. So your steps, actually, when we talk about calories burnt, which is normally what people are trying to get after when they do a bit of cardio, your steps, your general movement is the most efficient way to do that, because it's the least stress on the body. So it requires very little recovery. It won't spike the hunger hormone, ghrelin. So all of these other variables that we're trying to keep under control, we can actually skew when we start throwing in a little cheeky run and a little cheeky spin class. And it's like, yeah, I'm down for all of that. But honestly, we need to make sure that everything else is dialed in around it, so that we're not then 8 o'clock every night absolutely ravenous and we don't know why. And we think it's our willpower. And actually it was that bloody spin class that you decided to throw on the end of your weight session this morning. So we just want to get clear on what the plan needs to look like in line with specifically where we want to get to. But your steps is the most efficient way. If you're in a position now where you're like, do you know what, I'd just like to accelerate things a little bit. I'm happy with progress. I'm moving in the right direction. Training 3 times a week, following the split that Nick recommends, prioritising protein. I'm doing all the other stuff. I'd just like to speed it up a little bit. Just increase your steps, increase your general movement. 2,000 steps a day, like that's giving you an extra 7 to 14,000 steps over the course of the week. Increase your general movement. But definitely I want you to avoid doing cardio instead of weights. Nope, it's to complement your weights. It is not to replace weight training, ladies. And never, ever, ever exhaust yourself before lifting. So if you are going to do cardio in a session, do it after your weight training, not before. I will sometimes I'll often program a little bit of a warm up. So warming up again, make sure that we're doing this. It's exactly what it says on the tin. You are warming up your body, priming it for exercise, getting the heart rate up, getting the blood pumping, and warming your core body temperature. That can be anything between 3 to 6 minutes on a piece of cardio equipment. So if it was a rower, we'd do 3 minutes. If it's an elliptical, we might do 5 or 6 minutes, or if it's on a bike. So it depends what piece of cardio equipment that you're going to use. But yeah, so to break it down, a structure for your week might be Monday we lift weights. Tuesday, if you're doing your 4 days training, maybe on a Tuesday you do you get your steps and you do a bit of cardio. Then Wednesday you're going to do your weights. Thursday you're going to just make sure you really hit your steps. Friday you're going to do your weights, and then across your weekend you are going to make sure that you hit those steps and maybe get in a little bit of a stretch. Now we can call it a stretching session. It doesn't matter how you want to dress it up. Just get your foam roller out at home. Give yourself 20 minutes Saturday morning, Sunday morning, and have a good stretch. Do a little bit of mobility, have a little foam roll, just to complement and to support your recovery. And again, I probably should have said at the beginning of this episode, get your pen and paper out, because I'm giving you here the structure that I would follow, the routine in terms of how to make it work across your week. So you might want to write this down. But okay, common mistakes. Let's just land on these, ladies, as we come to close the episode. Changing workouts by the minute every week is a no. If you're doing this currently, you're not getting results, that is why. Not tracking your lifts, you're just not paying any attention to how much weight that you lift and how many reps that you're getting from one week to the other. Or you are tracking your lifts, but they're exactly the same week in and week out and have been for the last 6 months. That might be great to help you maintain where you're at, but it's not going to take your body to the next level. So training hard but not progressively. I would actually rather that you lower the intensity but get some progression somewhere. Skipping rest and recovery, common mistake. It does come as a bit of a shock to the system when we can't recover as quickly as maybe we did previously. And it definitely creeps on. We're all of a different age listening to this podcast. I'm due to be 43 in a couple of weeks' time. I can't believe I'm saying that. 43. And definitely, ladies, for me, wow, the last 12 months, my recovery has bit me on the butt. If I don't pay attention to recovery, and I'm just talking the simple stuff, stay well hydrated, make sure you fuel properly after your training, prioritise your early nights, Try to remain in that same sleep-wake cycle, even across your weekends. Reduce stress. Now, stress on the body can also come from takeaways and junk foods and alcohol. It's not just, it's not just your boss. Increasing your workload, that's not the only form of stress that we can put on the body. So really having to dial up recovery has been an eye-opener for me. But when you get that feedback from your body, you have to listen to it, you have to pay attention. We fall into this cycle, I think, for the first couple of weeks of like, if I just push harder, I'll be fine. It doesn't work. Pushing harder is no longer the strategy. Making sure that we properly rest and recover is critical. It's mission critical to getting to where you want to be, 100%. So whether or not your favourite fitness influencer is talking about this, maybe they're just talking about all of the balance that they manage to create and how hard they train. If they're of a certain age and they look a certain way, they are definitely paying attention to rest and recovery 100%. And again, like common mistake, not really what today's episode is about, but undereating. Undereating ultimately is going to kill the performance that we've just highlighted. That we want to be able to train well, we want to be able to recover well, we want to be able to progressively lift. Yep, we want to be dropping body fat in the process, a lot of us. So we know that we need to be managing that calorie intake. But this mentality of constantly like being on a diet and striving for low calorie and like, well, I've just got to work out, so I'm going to be good. It's such a broken mentality, isn't it? It's such a broken strategy. Like, we've been there, done that. We know it doesn't work, but then we don't know how to do anything different. So we just keep doing it, kind of thing. If you're listening to this and you're thinking, yeah, that's me, and you don't know how to do anything different, again, this is why we've created Thriving Women Group Coaching, because it is a group of like-minded women. You've got support, you've got accountability, but you're also getting the education around how to reframe, how to train smart, specifically. Of course, you're getting a training program, you're getting your nutrition and all the other good stuff, but most importantly, it's going to help almost like rewire the way that you look at taking care of yourself, because this is what this is a part of, ladies. Getting into the gym and lifting weights, whether or not it's to look good in our bikini, it's a big part of taking care of ourselves. So what do results actually look like? Let's set ourselves some expectations. So first couple of weeks, we start to feel stronger. If you're going to start lifting in this way that I've just recommended, first couple of weeks, you should be starting to feel stronger, like instantly. And then we get to that kind of like, maybe even like the 4 to 6 week mark, and we notice that like we're just moving better. So even simple things like, honestly, very simple things like getting out for your walk. You just notice that you can walk at a, like, whether it's a faster pace or, you've noticed that like your heart rate just seems to be way more under control. Simple one. Clients will tell me like, I got to the top of the stairs, Nick, and I'm not out of breath. And I'm just like, wow. Like, those are the metrics that really reflect progress. So you're moving better. 6 to 12 weeks, this is where we start to see like changes to body shape. And then that 12 weeks beyond, this is where you should continue to see changes to shape. Now, that's assuming that nutrition is also dialed in, which is a whole other conversation. But know that the changes to how your clothes fit, how you look in a progress photograph, will always outweigh what the scale says, because ultimately we are looking to build muscle, drop body fat, and transform our aesthetic. So really, one of the best predictors of that is how your clothes are fitting. Don't expect to see drastic changes week on week. It'll come over time. Again, you might bump into someone you've not seen for a good couple of weeks, and the first thing they will do is compliment how different you look, but you haven't seen it in yourself. So if you're currently in the process, the one piece of advice that I can give you, and you know that you're doing all of the things that we've just spoken about, keep going, stay consistent. Stop questioning whether it's working or not, because what we're doing there is there's still one side of our brain that's looking for an alternative option, a faster option, like a quicker way to do things. We're questioning the journey instead of just trust, stay consistent, stop overthinking when are the results going to come. A lot of the time they are in motion and everybody else can see it, but sometimes for us, when we're in the process ourselves, because our feelings, ladies, are so vulnerable, our feelings are impacted by our hormones, whether we've slept, what our kids have been up to, what stress we're under. Like, this impacts our emotions, our feelings, and how we feel. Then we feel like directly correlates to the actuality. So we feel fat, well, we must look fat. Well, no, that's not true. You feel it. You just feel it today because you're having a bit of a rubbish day. You're feeling a bit bloated, you didn't sleep great. The actuality, clothes still fit exactly the same as yesterday, might even fit better. But the way that you feel about your body is not always the true story of what your body reflects, if that makes sense. So this is where we need to remove how we feel on a day-to-day basis out of the equation and stay consistent. So remember, ladies, most of you are not struggling because you're not trying. I know that you're trying, but the struggle is that you're not following a structure that actually works. And I mean like really following it, not just cherry picking the good bits that you like or rewarding yourself with crazy calories because you've done a hard session. Like just sticking to the plan, following the structure. If you need help with structure, with a plan, with support, with accountability, I've said earlier on in the episode, very few women can actually do this alone. I certainly don't do it alone. I'm very lucky to be supported by a great community of women and my client community also, because we really all do cheer each other on, like genuinely keep each other accountable. Do you know what it is about our community? We just hold each other to a standard. Like there's a certain unspoken rule between us all, and it's a standard that we hold ourselves to. And I think that's the magic. Is like, that you're supported by like-minded others who actually get it, but also there's no way that you're not going to show up for yourself because that's the standard. Like I've chose to become a thriving woman and part of this community, and this is the standard that we hold ourselves to. We don't shit talk to ourselves. We don't let our boundaries get walked all over. We protect our energy and we train with intention. We get in the gym, we train with intention. We're walking past that spin class where everybody's going hell for leather. And we're going straight to the weights. And if we can get a spin class in somewhere for our enjoyment, then yeah, we're doing it. But we are lifting weights and we're going to look like we lift weights. I hope that this episode has been helpful, ladies. The next Thriving Women event is likely to be the end of April. I've now secured the venue, which was my first milestone that I was waiting for confirmation on. And I'm now just waiting to secure the date because it's got to be a date that works. I appreciate that there's a lot going on in terms of bank holidays, half terms, one thing and another. So I'm trying to nail down a date that I think will be the most doable for everybody. So yeah, I'll keep you posted on that. I would love to see as many of you there as possible. I will also be asking you all for your help once the voting lines open for the podcast nominations. And as always, ladies, if you've taken anything from this podcast or you would be kind enough to share, I would really appreciate it. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, share to somebody who needs to listen to this, or maybe onto your social medias. Let me know any comments, any questions around your own training, and I will catch you all on the next episode of the Nicola Graham Podcast.